welcome back to my channel. So I am super excited for today's video because I finally get to migrate into a new bullet journal. So you guys will see here I have my current bullet journal and my new bullet journal. So for my next bullet journal, I will be moving into a gray dot grid Leuchtturm in the A5 size. So I have this right here, and I actually have already unwrapped it, and I also broken the spine, which I will leave a link down below if you guys want to see the video that writer Carol has on breaking in the spine of your notebook. So I've already done that, and the first thing after actually breaking in the spine and opening up the notebook, the first thing that I like to do is to actually plan how I'm going to set up my new journal. So what I've done is I've actually set up a couple of pre-planning spreads in the back of my current bullet journal. So let me go ahead and open this up for you guys. So I have back somewhere, where are you? There we go. So I left a couple of spreads. So I actually went ahead and I set up all of August, just like the weeklies. And then I left a couple of extra spreads for collections and went ahead and set up my migration prep for bullet journal number 7 in the back. So I do have a couple of blank pages after this, but they are all the perforated pages. And so I've actually got a little sticky note to tear out those pages when I am finished completely with this bullet journal, because I like to use as many of the pages as I can, and I don't like to waste them. So if I can kind of see that I'm going to have extra pages, if I can save those tear out pages to then use for something else, I like to do that, because then otherwise they just live in the journal forever and they're just blank. So I hope that makes sense. Anyway, so moving on, that was kind of a side tangent. So I have my migration prep for bullet journal number 7 right here. And what I did is my standard setup where I do the little thumbnails and I number them for the pages, and then I have off to the right information about them. So one of the things that I did not do for this migration process that I usually do is a end of bullet journal review. And I thought about doing it, but I decided that I didn't really need it, because I'm not changing a whole lot. I am changing a couple of things, but some of it's a little bit more like superficial changes. So for example, I'm going to be changing my color code, which you will see right here, and I will show you the markers that I'm going to be using for that. And I kind of readjust a couple of things that I've got in here, but I really am not changing the content of the collections that are in the front of my bullet journal. So I decided that it wasn't really necessary for me to do that review, because I kind of did it mentally as I was going through, and I just didn't really feel like writing it down. So this time around, I really just have my pre-planning pages, and that's about it. So what I've got is down in the bottom corner here, I have my color scheme for the front of my bullet journal. Now you'll notice, so if you've seen previous migration videos of mine, let me go ahead and flip back to the front. I have a general sort of color scheme that I use for all of my front of bullet journal pages that I then will switch up month to month to do different colors for my months, basically. So this bullet journal number 6, I did a black and copper. So all of my pages, and you guys will see a full flip through at some point soon, but all of my pages, the basis for each spread is black and copper. So that was what all of my headers were in. Those are the main colors that I used. So what I decided to do for this bullet journal, since I am moving into a gray Leuchtturm, I decided to go back and do gray and copper, which I believe is actually what I did 2 journals ago. And I was flipping it back through some of my older bullet journals, and I really liked the look of that gray and copper, so I decided to do that again. So I've pulled out my gray Pentel sign pen and my copper Faber-Castell, and then of course I always use my Microns because they won't smudge. So they're just the best pens that I have for doing basic spreads, aside from actually doing the headers, for example. So this is going to be my color scheme for all of the pages in the front of my bullet journal. So we can move that off to the side. So that's one of the first things that I decide anytime I'm setting up a new bullet journal, is what are all of these pages going to kind of look like. Now, I have not yet decided what writing style I'm going to use. So for example, I did kind of block letters here, and I did a little bit of calligraphy over here. When I did the other one, sometimes I do more print style, sometimes I do more calligraphy. It just kind of depends. So I haven't decided on that yet. That's something that I will kind of decide as I'm doing my setup. And I usually will pick sort of a cohesive writing style to do for all of the spreads so that they all kind of are tied together. Then I have set up all of the pages that I want to initially set up in my bullet journal. So I have my year at a glance, which I've decided since I will be starting in September, so the beginning of the school year, I'm going to do a September through August year at a glance. So I will just do a combined 2018-2019 calendar. I have decided that since this bullet journal I actually got 8 months in, I'm going to do a 6-month calendex followed by, and I think it's a 6-month future log. I changed this when I actually did my setup. But I originally thought I was going to do a 5-month future log so that I could get from September all the way through July. So get a large portion of the school year in, basically. Then I'm going to do my savings goals and my expense tracker, and I'm going to do a 6-month expense tracker rather than a 4 or a 5-month, which is what I've done previously. I have my 101 and 1001 goals focus page, so all of the goals that I'd like to work on while I'm in this next bullet journal. So I'll have to go through my collection bullet journal and pull out the goals that I'd like to work on and also see the goals that I haven't actually finished from this one. Then I have my waiting for, so things that I purchase online that I'm waiting to for delivery, and my Nespresso tracker, so that'll be this page, followed by my YouTube editorial calendar, so the calendar that looks kind of like, where are you? Nope. This one. So the calendar that looks like this, but I have a full spread at the beginning, at the front of my bullet journal. So I'll have 6 months, so 3 per page. Followed by my YouTube tracker and my Instagram tracker. Then I have one page that I do as a calendex carryover, and this is something that I've done for a while, where if I have things that I need to migrate from my previous bullet journal, I like to have just one page that's dedicated to calendex, and then once I finish this, I'll put them at the bottom of whatever daily or weekly I'm using. But this is a good, this has been a really good system for me to just use. I know it's kind of, I don't know, maybe it's kind of cheating in terms of how you're supposed to do the calendex, but I personally like this method. Then I just have everything kind of right at a glance. So this calendex carryover is not actually going to be next to my calendex. However, it will be in those front of bullet journal pages, so it'll be easy for me to reference when I flip to my calendex. The next one, I have my library loans tracker, followed by K-dramas and next up K-dramas. So these are all of the spreads that I wanted to have in the front of my bullet journal when I set up my new bullet journal. And then basically after that, I'll go directly into monthlies, and I'll have any collections that come up after that will go in those monthlies, for example. While I was doing this, I did decide a little bit on September. So I have decided that I'm going to do September in French and Korean because I think I'm going to miss Korean, but I also want to practice French. So I'm going to kind of do a melding of both of them somehow. I'm not sure how yet. And I also specifically wanted to set up some information about September because I'm also going to update my language log color code. So let me go ahead and show you. Let's flip back. So I have my color code that I'm going to use. So basically my standard calendex color code is going to be these 5 colors. I have one fewer than I did in this past bullet journal because I no longer have my masters. So I tried to pick things, so I did kind of like a blue, yellow / neutral kind of look here, and I think they all look kind of nice together. And just to give you a reminder, my current color code and the colors that I kind of use throughout my journal for various, so for example, this is my color code that I'm currently using. And you'll notice that, for example, when I have things like this, I use colors from my color code. When I fill in my trackers, for example, I use colors from my color code. And so I was getting kind of bored. Like, I really like that color code, but I was getting kind of ready for a change. So I decided to do kind of neutrals, but a little bit brighter. So these are going to be the new my new color code for my calendex, but also they'll be the new colors that I use for things like my Instagram tracker and for my like various other trackers, so my savings goals and all that kind of stuff. I tend to use those same colors just so that I don't have to have a billion different Tombow pens in my pencil case. I could just use these ones for a lot of different things. Then for my language tracker, because I actually have one extra category, I've added in this one. So let me go through. So I have 020, 942, 991, 526, 533, and 873. So these are going to be my new my new color coding pens for both my Calendex, my language log, and then any other tracking stuff that I do in my bullet journal, just to kind of have a change. And I think that they look really nice with gray. So that was the main reason that I did a September setup. You guys will be getting a September plan with me, so I'm not going to go too in depth in here. I'm not actually going to set it up while I set up the front of my bullet journal, but I wanted to make sure that I had already set up for the language log so that I had enough pens out for those colors. So once I did this setup, so once I decided on my color code and I kind of figured out what I wanted to have in the front of my bullet journal, I did go ahead and move into my new bullet journal. And one of the things that I like to do before I get ready to film the actual plan with me for you guys is to pencil in certain things. So a lot of this I'm still going to leave blank. So this is the kind of traditional style of Leuchtturm where you have the 3 pages for the index. I know, for example, the Copper, so all of like those limited edition ones, have the new font for the numbers and for the page numbers, and they have a new style of index. I don't know if if the normal Leuchtturms are now with that style, or if I just happened to buy this one before that came out. I'm not sure. The one thing that I had to be really careful about is there is one fewer dot. I think it's one dot like narrower than it is in the Copper Leuchtturm. So I like to do a little bit in pencil before I start, just so that I know where my spacing is going to go, because that kind of changes. So I have sticky notes for the different spreads that I have, and then for certain spreads, so for example, for my year at a glance, I like to space out before I start writing. So I just do basically little ticks to indicate where each month is going to go, and then how far my header is going to be. I have also tick marks for my Calendex so that I know exactly how I'm going to be able to fit 6 months in here. And I originally thought I was going to do a 5-month Calendex, but I decided that I didn't need it to be as long. So I could fit in 6 if I did them more narrow. So I think I'm going to do them left to right, top to bottom. So I have that kind of spaced out. Then, for example, my savings, I'm just going to do the header, and as I get closer, I will figure out which savings goals I have in here, so I haven't actually set anything up for that. I did set up for my expense tracker because I needed to fit in 6 months rather than 5, and so I had to figure out how I was actually going to make that work. Then I have, this is the 101 and 1001 focus waiting for an espresso, and I haven't done anything because I basically just do the headers for this and I fill it in as I go. There's not really anything super complicated for this one. I have my 6-month YouTube calendar, so I did plan out a little bit over here with how I'm going to fit in and all of that. I have my YouTube and my Instagram. Once again, this is just going to be the headers, so I didn't have to plan anything for that one. I have my Calendex carryover and my library loans, so I just had tick marks for where my columns are and where my header goes down to, so nothing too complicated there, but I do have a couple of guiding lines, or guiding tick marks actually. And then this one I decided to change, where instead of doing a full spread of K-drama trackers and a full spread of next up K-dramas, I decided to do just a page of each, and then I'll just add to it as I need to later on in my bullet journal. After that, it basically goes into September. So I have actually done the sticky notes for September, and I did pre-do some of my tick marks so that I'm ready for my plan with me come September or come the end of August. But I will not be doing that in this particular video. But this is basically what I do in order to kind of prep my bullet journal before I actually sit down and do all of the spreads. So what I will be doing next, I will time-lapse you guys and let you see how I actually am setting up this new bullet journal. All right, so for you guys, this is the same video, but for me, it's actually like 2 weeks later because I did not have a chance to film this video before I left on vacation. So I am now back from my vacation and ready to get set up and a little bit more on a time crunch. So before I dive into doing the time lapse, now that I'm ready to actually do it, I want to show you guys all of the things that I'm going to be working with. So I have my color code pens, which I have rubber banded together while I was out of town. So I have my color code pens right here, which don't need quite yet. I have my Microns all ready to go. I have my blotting paper to put under my palm as I write. I have both of my rulers, so I do like to do the longer ruler when I'm doing things like my Calendex because then I don't have to move and possibly like mess up my straight line. So I've got these two. Then I also have this 2018-2019 calendar all printed off so that I don't have to flip back to another reference to find my calendar when I'm doing my year at a glance. So I will use this as my reference. And I've got my notebook. So I will also, even though I've got everything set up in here with sticky notes, I will actually flip and keep this page open off camera. You guys have already seen this, so it's not a big deal. It's just kind of for me to keep in mind. And that reminds me that I've forgotten one of the most important things. So I forgot to pull out the all-important pens for my front of bullet journal. So the Copper, Faber-Castell, and gray Pentel sign pen, and also my eraser to erase my pencil marks. So now that that is all ready, I'm gonna go ahead and time-lapse you guys, and I'll come back at the end and show you how everything worked out. Okay, so this setup did not go quite as I had hoped, as I'm sure you guys saw in the time-lapse section, but I will show you guys exactly what kind of went sideways and how I ended up fixing it. So, first up, I have just written my name in the front cover here. You've probably noticed in some of my previous flip throughs that I've stopped doing any sort of decoration on this cover and have just left it as an open space for things like sticky notes, or actually mostly just sticky notes. I do usually go in and write my Sunshine and Stationery email address. I just didn't feel like doing that right now, so I just wrote my name in there. But I will probably write it in like a gray pen or something like that, just so it goes with the color scheme. Next, I am going to wait and set up my my index once I have a little bit more. I will most likely set it up the same exact way that I have been for the last couple of bullet journals, where I have what the page is and then the page number after. I just tend to wait and do a batch of indexing items at one time. So now, now we're up to my year at a glance and the first big snafu in this setup. So yeah, I don't know what happened. Actually, you know what? I do know what happened. So, lesson to me, I thought that I was going to have more time to film this setup before I went on vacation. And so I got all of my setup stuff all ready to go. All that I had to do was actually put pen to paper and set everything up. The problem is that I didn't actually have time before I left. And so when I came back today to actually sit down and ink everything in, I was looking at my guiding lines from 2 weeks ago, and I thought that I remembered exactly what I wanted to do. And so I just kind of it's like, oh, I have all my stuff set up, let's go for it. Yeah, well, oops. I should have skipped 2 lines at the top of the section here to write the month in and then do Monday through Saturday or Monday through Sunday, but I just went right in with my gray pen doing Monday through Sunday for 4 months. And then once I realized that, I was like, you know what? No harm, no foul. I'll just write the month on the bottom. No big deal. So that worked well, except that I decided to go ahead and write in a couple of them, and somehow my brain went from October to December instead of November. So thankfully, that is what these extra tear out pages from my old Leuchtturm come in handy for. I just glued over the top. Now the problem that I'm having, and you notice it kind of stuck, is that I was using a glue roller, and to make it so that my edges didn't peel up on me, I went over, I put the piece of paper on another sheet of paper and glued over it. The problem is that this particular glue roller, and maybe it's all of them, but this one in particular I've noticed, it will deposit a little bit right on that edge, and so it'll stick. So I actually, if I run my finger along the edge here, I can eventually pull up most of that excess glue, so hopefully it'll stop sticking so badly, but that's what is happening there. So then after that, everything went fairly well. Just, straight off the bat, to have 2 major things that I messed up was kind of disheartening, but you know what? It's fine. I can totally use this year at a glance. I didn't destroy it completely. It's just not exactly what I had envisioned, so oh well. So year at a glance is all set up, and I like that I can have the entire school year right on here, perfect. So if you guys saw my teacher bullet journal setup, I actually do for the school year in there, I do August to July because that's when I have school stuff. But since this is specifically for this bullet journal and the first monthly in this journal is September, I started at September and went through August. That's the only reason why that's 1 month off from my other school calendar kind of stuff. So then I have my Calendex and Future Log, which I have to say I am really proud that I didn't screw up the future log because I did mess up the calendex. So I don't know what happened when I was counting. Somehow I counted out 32, which no month has 32 days, so I have no idea what I was thinking. So I ended up just whiting that out because yeah, I didn't feel like leaving it there. And it turned out that I actually still had plenty of room to do my color code, so it wouldn't have been an issue even if I wanted to leave it there. I just didn't want to have that extra line confusing me once I got to the end of the month. So yeah, the rest of it is a pretty standard setup. I have the days down each side so that as I move like past the midway point, I can start referring to the numbers on this side, so it's easier to make sure that I'm on the right line. So yeah, and the new color code, I am super excited to play around with this one because I've had that old color code for I don't even know how many bullet journals at this point. It's been a few, I think. I'll have to check at some point. Anyway, so then I have my blocks for my future log because near the end of this past bullet journal, I stopped doing my writing where I do one letter per box, and I've just gone back to regular writing, but much smaller. And so I decided that I was probably going to keep doing that for this bullet journal, and so I really didn't need that long space to make sure I could fit everything. So I think that I think I'll have plenty of space in these, and I think it'll be nice to have a 6-month overview to really get that full calendar year. I don't know how long I'll actually get in this bullet journal, but I figure I'm better off having a little bit more given how things have been going lately in terms of me fitting more months in my bullet journal. Next, I have my savings goals, which as I mentioned, I will fill in once I get closer to the end of August and I know which things I need to either tweak or carry over as is, or I don't need to carry over, for example, so I will fill that in later. I am planning to use my color code. I will whoops, you are from my language journal. Where's my other one? Oops, here it is. So I have a feeling that I'm going to do maybe like the blue and yellow, or whoops, or maybe, oh my goodness, maybe this blue and yellow. So I'm gonna pick 2 of these color code colors to do my alternating savings goals. So once I get closer, I will decide which ones I'm actually gonna do, but you will see new colored trackers in this new bullet journal, which I'm also excited about because just something else to look at visually, you know. Anyway, so expenses. It was a bit of a juggling act trying to fit 6 months in here. I basically just sacrificed having more room for the headers in order to fit it. So I will go in and fill in everything that I need to fill in later, but you guys kind of have an idea of what this looks like. I've basically kept the same finance tracker in all of my bullet journals, maybe not the first one, but pretty much all of them. So expenses, which is going to be how much it is and what it is with the total that I have out per month. Bills by month, so I will go ahead and take the opportunity this bullet journal to reorder them so that I have them by what comes out first in the month all the way down to what comes out last. This is for pending, usually for checks. So for example, if I write someone a check and they haven't cashed it, or somebody writes me a check or something like that, I use that to keep track of this just so that I kind of know if I need to keep an eye on something. And then my month-to-month income, and then this section is actually for Amazon affiliates, but I just haven't actually built that in. Then I have my 101 and 1001 focus. So I will go through all of my 101 and 1001 goals, as well as the goals that I have pulled out for my focus in this past bullet journal, and go through and see which ones I finished, which ones I need to do, decide if there are any that I need to tweak or adapt or change completely, and I'll go ahead and fill that in. This is my waiting for section, so anytime I do an online purchase, I keep an eye on it so that I make sure I'm not missing a package, for example. So I make sure I actually get everything that I did order. Then my Nespresso tracker, which this one I used to give more space to, but I basically just go and buy coffee once a month, and I use this to then transfer into my home bullet journal spread because I have 2 separate sections that I keep in my home bullet journal, and so I just do all the information here, and usually every 2 or 3 months I will transfer that into my other journal. But this way I don't have to go hunting down my receipts to remember how many capsules I bought and how much it actually was. So I like to keep that in here. Then I've got my YouTube calendar, which I am super proud with how centered this came out because I didn't count at all. I just kind of eyeballed it. So I'm really pleased about that given how the rest of the setup was kind of going. So this is where I kind of plan out and then mark down what I've actually posted to YouTube. I have enough space that I either do, you know, if it's during the school year and I really only do 1 video per week, I have plenty of space for that. But if for some reason I do 2 videos, I actually can just cut the box in half and I have 2 videos per week. Normally I write which week it is on this side, but I think I'm not necessarily going to do that. I think I might go in and number, for example, on Sundays, put in the date of that Sunday in each box, just because I had to squish these down a little bit more since I'm in the gray Leuchtturm that has 1 fewer column than the Copper Leuchtturm has. So that was basically the only reason for that. And it's less numbering for me. I don't have to go back and look through and see which weeks are in which month, basically. So then I have my YouTube and my Instagram tracker, and you guys might have seen on here that I was like this close to just leaving it as Insta because it was pretty well centered, and I was like, I did the full thing for YouTube, I'll do the full thing for Instagram, even if it kind of makes it not as centered. Oh well. And this is another one that I'm going to use 2 of the colors from my color code to do my tracking. We'll see how it goes. Next up, Calendex carryover library loans. These are ones I've had before and they're ones that I really like, so I have just kept these spreads basically as is, minus changing the outline color on here to gray rather than black. And this, I ended up only doing a full spread of K-dramas because I actually have set up a Next Up K-drama spread in my bujo sidekick, which will stay in my notebook cover, so I actually don't need that anymore. And that's the end. The next thing I'm gonna have in here is September, and away we go. So I apologize for not having a second angle for filming. It just kind of, I forgot when I got started, and so I kind of just ran with it. Hopefully you guys could see everything. I will link anything down below that I use so you guys know what Tombow colors and all that kind of fun stuff. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I am super, super excited to be in a new bullet journal because I'm just ready for like a new color scheme and have like a fresh start and all of that. So yeah. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.